Today's podcast is sponsored by one of our favorite products, Almond Cow. We've been using it for well over a year, and I say we, mostly my husband Mark, who is mooing. Honey, what are your thoughts about Almond Cow?
This is the Moo Man.
He's back.
I love the Almond Cow because we know how great it is. Anything that you can make a plant-based milk with, you're set. And I just have it. I don't need to make that much. It's just sitting in the pantry. And then when we're ready, I just make it. It takes a minute. It tastes so good.
It tastes so good. And for those of you who are thinking about it, let me tell you why. There are no added preservatives, any kind of artificial stuff. You put in it what you want. You can sweeten it to your taste. It is so easy to make, so easy to clean up. And it's pure gold. It really is.
And they give you a lot of recipes on the Almond Cow website. You have the recipe, so you don't have to think, you don't have to go anywhere to find it. It's there for you.
Yes, we love it so much. So if you're interested in getting your own, go check out the link or just go to their site, almondcow.co, and you can use code LARA, L-A-R-A, for extra savings. Go get yourself one and have fun. I'm Laura Hyman, and welcome to Redefining Movement, a lit podcast designed to investigate all aspects of movement from my background in physical therapy and neuroscience. My mission is to help everyone find freedom through smarter movement patterns and compassion for ourselves and others, so together we can live our most uplifted lives, benefiting all beings. Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you all ask the questions and we answer. I am joined by my lovely, amazing, brilliant, energetic, so organized co-host, Kristen Williams.
Oh, I love it. Woo! Thank you, Laura. That was really extra today. And you know what? It was on a day like today, I needed it. So thank you for that.
Okay, well, you're all that and much more. Much more. All right.
Go for it.
So I got a couple of questions into Instagram. This one is LTO Banja. I have a fear of injury or exacerbating existing injuries, and this prevents me from trying out new exercises and sometimes, honestly, stops me from exercising at all. What is the best way to get over this fear?
Oh, this is, man, I mean, you know what? I'm so glad that this person asked this question because fear of pain is real. And I was just having a conversation. I was, talking with someone about, I was actually talking about lit and about how one of my favorite things is how much we educate people and how I'm so glad that as a PT, I learn so much. I don't fear pain because I have such a clear understanding of the body. And so when I do get injured, I actually look at injuries as and this is different because I'm a PT. It's like, oh, now I understand what that person was feeling when they were saying this. So to me, I have been fortunate enough not to have any severe injuries that required surgery. I have a healthy fear of like an ACL tear or even tearing my Achilles or something that, these common injuries, but it's not a fear enough to stop me from doing something. It's a fear that makes me think more about what I'm doing. And so again, and that's where I love lit, that we are educating people why it's important to move and exercise, but why the way you move and exercise does matter. And you just develop a better relationship with fear of injury, fear of pain, because you're more knowledgeable about, okay, if I do get injured, it's not the end of the world. Because the crazy thing about injuries is you might bend over to pick up something off a low shelf and throw out your back. Now you bend over to pick up something off a low shelf time and time again, and yet that is what hurts you, quote unquote. It probably isn't. In the same way, exercising probably isn't the reason you're getting injured either, especially if you're exercising smartly. I remember, Laura, when we were in studio and we used to sell stuff in the studio, one of our most popular t-shirts just said smart yoga. And that was our tagline, because a lot of people, I mean, most people know my story. I got into yoga because people kept getting injured in it. And as I was seeing them as patients, I'm like, what in the world are they doing in yoga? And I understand, I mean, as soon as I went to the class, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I understand what they're doing. So I love that what we're doing is a smart version. People, another common, you know, sport or exercise that people get injured in is skiing, hurting the knee. So I'll admit I'm a little less fearless when it comes to skiing, or a little less, what's the word? Um, oh, I'm more cautionary
Yes.
because
Yes. Right.
I recognize the risk. So I feel like I'm kind of all over the place with this, but I want to hear what you have to say, Laura.
Well, I understand. I mean, I think you spoke to it. Like fear is definitely powerful. And because fear is really a conversation you're having in your head, and you repeat it enough and it becomes realer and realer, and that becomes what dictates your life. I mean, so like you were saying, it's even hard to sometimes even want to move because you're already preconditioned, and you have that strong messaging that says, "Oh, you could get hurt. This remember this is how you did it before," or we don't know your background or anything like that, but it's so I think that's the first thing is like it's an opinion that you have formed and has become very strong. And so now you have to kind of dismantle it a little bit. And I always like to say, your body is really trying to work for you. So we just need to give it more um, directions, education. Like Kristen said, it is important how you do movement. Not all movement is equal. So I would first say, like, start to just think of movement as life. And if you're not moving the dial, you're not changing the script, you're not doing anything. So I would start with any kind of gentle movement, and that could be just walking, but paying attention. Can you grow the spine? Can you feel that you're lifting your legs up to support your pelvis instead of kind of tipping down? So if like, I'll give a very real example. I was hiking in Peru and we hiked to Machu Picchu, and it was a very vigorous hike. And on the second day, we climbed up major elevation, which was so taxing. But then I think way worse was there was 3.5 hours of straight downhill. And it was not, it was, there's a lot of rocks and stuff. So you couldn't really, anyway, my knees was, I woke up the next day and I started, every time I would go down, my knee would hurt. And I had this moment of like, oh crap, I have 3 more days of this. And I saw the wheels going. Am I going to ruin my knee? Am I doing more damage? And I just thought, no, it's really irritated. But I couldn't not do it because I was in the middle of the jungle and so I just figured out a different way. I used my poles. I would go, my husband took really funny video. I would go down sideways. So I knew my left knee was bothering me. I would always go down with leading trying not to bend it as much. That's what really bothered it. And that it hurt me until the very last day where we had another very steep descent and I was doing this sideways like hoppy thing with our poles and it was swollen and all that. And I got back and guess what? I got on my mat, nothing, no pain. And some of that is my body is more balanced. So it's kind of ready to resolve some of so the worst thing I could have done is to not move or to already anticipate, oh, this is going to hurt. I anticipated after going through my fear, like I anticipated it's going to work for me. I just got to get it moving. It was irritated. It didn't like all that downhill. It definitely did something to some of the tissue structures around there, but it was fine. It was absolutely fine. Within, I mean, days of when I thought I was crippled. So one is start believing your body's working for you. 2 is go and get educated about biomechanics so that you can set your body up for more success to unload any joints or areas of the body that have like already have the existing injuries. And then 3, move. Just move in any way and then start adding more movement and try and move in various ways because your joints really, most of your joints really like that, especially the big joints. So we could do a whole podcast on this, but I hope that helps you.
No, I think that's good. And I love that you brought up, how you were doing something that you were unaccustomed to and doing a lot of it because of where you were. And so I think that reminded me of, if you are getting into exercise, start slow. You said it, start gentle, because you need to be methodical. I think a lot of people will be like, I'm going to exercise like in January, all the New Year's resolutions, and then they do too much too fast too soon, and then they do get injured. So really begin, like you said, walking gentle. That was a really, really great suggestion that I think is a great way to avoid it.
Yes.
But then, yeah, if it happens, change your outlook. All right. We also had something come in via email from our good friend Rita over in France. She said, could you speak about stenosis tenosynovitis? I hope I found the correct name. It happens when you flex a finger and you can't extend or straighten it anymore, and it's super painful. It's happening to an occasional student of mine in his early 60s. He used to work in a printing factory when things were still done by hand. He's getting steroid injections as per now to ease the inflammation. I was just wondering how we can help with LIT and maybe help him not need surgery. Loving the podcast, and thanks for the amazing education and knowledge that you bring forth.
Mm.
Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. So, let's just speak of any of the digits, whether it's your like a second, third finger, which probably this is happening in, or a thumb, because our thumb is opposable, which means it has a lot more mobility. And because of that, I see as many people having these kind of tendinitis, any kind of inflammation of the synovial fluid, and synovium, which is what he's experiencing. So the fact that we already know that he was doing a lot of work with his hands is the signal. So there's an overuse that happened over time. And I know when I'm doing stuff on my phone for too long, my thumb starts to feel tender and achy. I call it iPhoneitis. You're scrolling, and because that is such a mobile, and I try and do other fingers. So I would say yes with lit. One thing you could do, just if he's practicing with you or in a group, is he can specifically really rub along that finger, because of this is more, it's called more distal, which means farther away. He's been using it a lot. It might be not only stiff, but it has accumulated more inflammation and what we would say is like inflammatory soup, which is all the kind of reactions that happen when you've inflamed an area. And if it gets really stuck in there, it can be harder to move. It could also be just triggering a kind of nervous system response. But more likely, I have a feeling it's just he needs to really mobilize it and to massage it, like a lot of that massage. So if he's taking a class, when we stretch out our wrist, you can really tell him just really grab. You want to slide the skin around the bone of the fingers. I'm doing it online. It's just like pretend like you're grabbing, like you're shaking somebody's hand, but I'm grabbing a second finger and then I'm just rubbing it. So I'm trying to get more heat into the area, more blood flow, and that can help some of that accumulative, whether it's just the synovium or some inflammatory soup in there, just to get it feeling better and able to move that digit. That would be my biggest recommendation. And then weight bearing through it is going to help, just because it's putting, think about if you have a cramp or something in a finger or in your foot. If you've ever had a foot cramp, like toe cramp, what do you need to do? You need to put weight on it. Like you need to get weight down on it. Just grabbing it and holding it usually isn't enough. So putting weight down on it after it's been prepared through some stretching and some myofascial, just scrubbing the skin and the fascia that's right underneath there, can be really helpful as well.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned, him doing a little bit extra. I know my husband, because he works on a computer a lot, his can be more wrist, but I think a lot of things, this guy's working with his hands a lot and it's overuse, like you said. So, Tim, before he does lit, he does an extra 5 to 7 minutes of a good wrist warm up. So everything that Laura's saying, your guy warming up his wrists, warming up his shoulder blades. The stuff we're doing in lit is going to help anyway. Um, Getting a really good warm up, like Laura said, the hands-on work is great. Bottom line, also with these trigger fingers, sometimes they need surgery. This guy's in his 60s, so we see that's when it starts to happen. A lot of times this is genetic, and we can do all the hand therapy we want, which here in the US we have specialized hand therapists that people can go to. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So giving him this conservative option of, like Laura said, warming it up, mobilizing the wrist, the forearms, coming up into the where the muscles are, because it's the tendon that's getting caught, but it can be from muscles in the hand. It can be from muscles that are located in the forearm. So if he really does all of that, the weight bearing is great for him. If it continues, the good news is these trigger finger release type surgeries are pretty darn successful. It sounds like this is his job. He can't necessarily change jobs. I do think surgery is going to take him out for a while, which might, be impactful, but I love all of the conservative recommendations that, Laura gave, and just the fact that he's doing lit is a good start, but getting a really good active warm up too, opening and closing the hands.
Mm-hmm.
If he's catching that might bother it, but if he can go right to before he catches and just sort of work into that, easing might help, assuming he's not triggered, he's not caught at that time. But I do know people, like, they will just sort of wiggle it when it's caught, wiggle, 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 and then it will uncatch. So, and then once he's uncaught, then he can, do a lot of that connective tissue work that Laura was talking about. Mobilize, mobilize, mobilize. And hopefully the conservative approach will do the trick.
Yeah. And I agree. Like, don't not do surgery, but I think always do all these things beforehand and see.
Absolutely.
Pause what you're doing and imagine this: a week of being on a beautiful island by the magical Aegean Sea, practicing lit with myself and Kristen Williams. And as physical therapist and lit leaders, we will guide you every day through wonderful harmonizing practices, including our signature lit flows. And the evenings will be myofascial and mobility stretching sessions to fully support your quest for longevity in the body, brain, and spirit. Every day you'll have delicious meals. We can go swimming in the sea and commune together to really bond and stay committed to our endeavor for longevity. So join us in Greece this coming October 12th through 19th. Look for all the information in the show notes. I would love for you to join us. Okay, this last one came in from a lovely woman who's asking, you speak so much about posture, and I understand why it's so important. I'd like to convince my sister. So can you please explain, how does movement impact our posture and overall body mechanics?
Yeah. I mean, this is like, I would say, lit's number one tenet. This is our biggest soapbox to stand upon for people. And because there's a lot of stuff out there on social media that's saying posture doesn't matter. And let's be frank, there is no clinical association between poor posture causing pain. There's not a lot of clinical evidence for anything causing pain. So if that's the case, then So I hate that argument that if your pelvis is tipped, don't worry about it because it doesn't mean you're going to have pain. If you've got rounded shoulders, don't worry about it because it doesn't mean you're going to, okay, it doesn't mean you're going to have pain. But the bottom line is we're talking about a moving body, and it's how we're moving in space, and it's physics. The only thing we know for a fact are physics principles, right? Like these have been proven. Force equals mass times acceleration, lever arms, the amount of torque going through a joint based upon the length of the lever arm, the size of a muscle, how, where it connects, the length of a tendon, absolutely is correlated, is fully linked to the amount of force we can produce, the amount of stress or strain going through a body part. That is fact. So while there are a lot of people who have poor posture, who are lucky enough not to have pain at that snapshot in their life, there are way more people who come to, whether it's physical therapy, whether it's lit, and are educated about why posture matters from a physical perspective of when you are placing a demand upon the body. If you stack it up better, it can withstand more weight for longer periods. And if you change your body's position, if you move in a multitude of ways, which in my opinion also is a part of posture. Posture is not just staying erect and keeping everything stacked. It's moving through our joints, moving through the mobile joints and stabilizing through the stable joints, as opposed to doing the opposite, which is what poor posture usually causes people to move too much through joints that are supposed to be stable and not move enough through joints that are supposed to be mobile. So there's this whole dialogue that is lost in a clickbait statement that posture doesn't matter. So let's stop thinking about posture simply as standing up tall. Posture is biomechanics. Posture is how much force is going through a joint at any given time, and how can we improve upon that? How can we make better choices, not only in our exercise, but in our life, to decrease the amount of strain? And I don't say stress, I say strain, because stress is good. Our joints need stress. Our muscles need stress. Our tendons need stress to build. Our bones need stress to build. What they don't need is strain. And poor posture, poor movement patterns places strain upon, can, and oftentimes does place strain upon joints that for many people will cause injury and therefore pain. Laura, what do you have to add to that?
Oh, we know we could talk about this forever, but we've talked about the biomechanics of it, and the biomechanics are just like, again, you're going to move efficiently. So it definitely affects your movement, and it affects your body mechanics, and vice versa, right? Like how we stand is how we move, and how we move affects how we stand, etc. But also maybe your sister might want to think about, and everybody, like, what are the things people complain about the most is like stress in their lives and energy, like low energy, which usually kind of go hand in hand. Well, how you carry yourself. So we think of posture, like Kristen was saying, is not just standing upright. It's like how you're carrying your energy in a balanced way impacts those things. It impacts not only the mechanical stress on your joints, but the stress that you carry when you carry and increased tension in your tissues. It's a burden. It's a burden for your energy, which in turn not only you have less energy to give because you're already starting off with like more of a burden. It also creates stress that then is manifest in emotional stress, right? Just think about like how it feels in your body when you're more contracted. You feel like you're in a stressed state. So stress. It also affects your breathing. We know good posture. It's easier to breathe when you're carrying your energy, your body through space. Your center of mass is right around your pelvis, and how you're carrying that transmits the energy through there, but also allows you to hold your spine more in a stable position when needed, your rib cage in a better position, so your breath is more optimized. And not only does that feel good, you have more endurance when you are working and moving and all that, but when you're breathing better, your stress responses are more in line with where they need to be, right? So you're putting yourself in a more relaxed state when you need to be, you're upping your energy, because we do need stress. It helps us be motivated to move and helps us be motivated to accomplish things. So it's just balancing the nervous system. So posture is, I just look at it as like, it's an energetic state. And if it's balanced, our nervous system is more likely to be balanced.
I love that. And
Yeah.
that is the stuff that we forget about.
Exactly. All the reasons. So I love it. These are awesome questions. And you're hitting all the points that, we always love to talk about, how posture matters, how movement matters, how we want to believe our body is working for us, because it is, but we just need to get better input sometimes to make sure that we're doing that. So we're sitting, standing, and moving with more ease and efficiency, and that translates into having more energy. So thank you. You can write us at any time. You can reach out on Instagram, DM me at lara.hyman, Lit Method, or you can reach right out to KB at kbwilliams99.
Yep. You can also write us via email at support@lityoga.com. We would love to hear from you. As always, be sure to rate and review. We love to get that feedback about, how you like what we're doing, or any
share it with friends, right? Yeah, share it with friends. We appreciate your support so much. Check out our Lit Daily platform. I know so many of you are subscribers, but if you haven't made that jump, go do it. It's so worth it. And as always, we're pulling for you. Woo! Thank you for joining us on this episode of Redefining Movement. If you like what you've heard, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Feel free to leave us a rating and review, or share with someone you know. Check us out at www.litmethod.com.